Hello everyone, I'm Matt Mitrovic, the alternate historian. Just 1 second. I can fix this. That's better. Sorry about that. Reality can get a bit wonky in the office. Anywho, do you guys like alternate history maps? Of course you do. So let's take a look at a map of Africa never colonized by Europeans.
This is Alkebu-lan, which is supposedly Arabic for Land of the Blacks. Created by Swedish artist Nikolaj Cyon, he used several sources, including UNESCO's A General History of Africa, plus linguistic and geographical maps, to depict what Africa would look like sans European colonization in 1844. It is probably one of the most popular alternate history maps on the internet, and it's even appeared on the Washington Post's website. It is set in a timeline where the Black Death in the mid-13th century was a lot worse for Europe. Thus, events such as the Reconquista or the Age of Exploration never happened. Without interference from Europeans, the rest of the world, especially Africa, is able to develop on their own. This is important because there is evidence suggesting that Europe's partitioning of Africa led to arbitrary divisions of existing African ethnic groups, which later caused conflicts and other problems to develop in modern Africa. On his website, Cyon admitted to spending years working on this map. Here's the oldest version of the map from 2010. And here is a more recent draft.
In all honesty, I think this map is gorgeous. The colors are soft, and I love the attention to detail.
For example, you can see a lot of sultanates, emirates, caliphates, or states with Arabic-sounding names, which makes sense since without European missionaries, there would be a lot more Muslims in Africa. It also avoids the straight lines that our timelines Africa is plagued with. Even the orientation of the map speaks volumes since it subverts the traditional Europe on top orientation. I especially like how this alternate Africa's influence extends into Europe and the Middle East.
Of course, the big question is, how plausible is this map of alternate Africa?
To be fair, the Black Death wiping out more or all of Europe's population to cancel out European imperialism is a tad cliche. Probably the best example of it is Kim Stanley Robinson's Years of Rice and Salt. The Black Death, however, did have some unintentionally positive consequences for Europe in our timeline. The loss of life meant land was cheap and labor was in high demand. Wages went up and serfdom began to disappear, especially in Western Europe. New technologies were developed since the pool of manual labor had shrunk. Considering it's already predicted that the Black Death wiped out between 30 to 60% of Europe's population in this timeline, you would probably need to wipe out all of Europe's population, prevent them from ever colonizing the globe. But Cyon still shows that several European states survived in his alternate history.
Also, Africa in this timeline would likely just trade one group of imperialists for another. Without powerful Christian European states to keep them in check, Islamic states would likely expand into the continent.
For example, Nicholas Danforth of the Afternoon Map suggested that Ottoman Turkey would probably have expanded into Africa if Europeans hadn't colonized it. If the Ottomans did try this in Cyon's timeline, it certainly doesn't seem like it lasted long. Plus, the spread of Islam to sub-Saharan Africa would probably wipe out the native faith on the continent, much like Europeans did in this timeline with Christianity. So even if this Africa avoided arbitrary borders imposed by European imperials, it still technically got colonized by outsiders.
Still, you don't see that much Islamic influence in the southern half of the continent, but that area has its own problems, such as anachronistic borders.
For example, Professor Johan Forey of Stellenbosch University points out on his blog that our timeline's Johannesburg, where South Africa's wealthiest gold mines are found, is at the junction of 4 different states in Cyon's map. He asks, wouldn't the discovery of gold lead to conflict between the states until only one controlled the entire region? Meanwhile, Professor Laura Mitchell of UC Irvine pointed out in her article on the map that it still reflects Eurocentric thinking about nation-states. According to the sources she referenced, Africa's sense of territoriality was different from Europe's, with less emphasis on the ownership of land and more emphasis on the people you belong to. Thus, pre-colonial African borders tend to be fluid, and there were plenty of areas that no state claimed. This is especially true for nomadic or semi-nomadic people as well. In Cyon's defense, it's possible African states may have developed a European-style nation-state on their own, as trade and conflict over natural resources encouraged strong centralized states to develop. Rachel Strom, a PhD student in political science at Berkeley, suggested as much in her commentary on the map.
So Cyon's timeline isn't that plausible, but despite the scenario's flaws, I still think this map deserves praise.
Because so many alternate histories focus on North America or Europe, it's refreshing to see someone cover a neglected part of the world. It's for that reason, and the artistic quality of the map itself, that we will continue to see this map shared again and again on social media and elsewhere.
Well, that is all I got to say on this subject. If you like what I do, please comment, subscribe, share this video, or support me on Patreon. I'm Matt Mitrovic, the alternate historian. Bye. Just a second, I can fix this.